Hello there. So we haven't been told the full truth on climate change then? We all know the climate changes, it always has. But now we're told the changes are driven by human activity. But there are a couple of questions that do need answering. And I'm going to show you some public domain data from a US government source, which might surprise you. So we are now in a period of unprecedented heat waves. We see it every day on those garishly red weather maps that are thrust in our faces. If not from the UK, then from anywhere else in the world will do. Just get those witheringly red heat maps in front of the people. And this now seems to be an annual ritual whenever the summer starts. Now, in the US, there is a thing called the Heatwave Index, based on data collected by the US Climate Change Science Program and held by the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. You can also get that data from Our World in Data. Now, although the EPA has data going back to 1895, it chooses to show only the data from the 1960s onwards, which does seem rather odd. And the full data isn't readily available unless you know where to look, or even know of its existence. I'll show you the graph here, so you can work out for yourself why they would choose to only show half the data. And the thick black line near the bottom of the graph is the average, 0.104. And the spikes in the 1930s are referred to as the Dust Bowl years, with the index using a definition of a heatwave being 4 or more days long, together with an average temperature that would only be expected every 10 years according to historical records. And the index is then an indicator of how often and widespread heat waves are for any given year. And as you can see, the 1960s and the 1970s in the US were signally lacking in heat waves. And in 1978 there was a bitter winter, which sparked the making of In Search of the Coming Ice Age, using Leonard Nimoy of Star Trek fame to front it. The science said the ice was advancing. But remember, back then, just 45 years ago, the trend they saw was cooling. And if we only look back 50 or 60 years, or are only shown data and images back to the 1960s, then the trend we see is warming. But going all the way back to 1895 tells us a slightly different story. Now, Fox News did a piece on this a couple of days ago, written by author Justin Haskins of the Heartland Institute. And he also said that a meteorologist and senior fellow at the Heartland Institute, Anthony Watts, analysed the NOAA database and found that when analysing it, 81% of the weather stations used by the NOAA showed that, since 1948, there has been either a decrease or no change in the number of unusually hot days. Now, the author puts this current heatwave reporting by the press down to sloppy, irresponsible media reporting combined with cherry-picked data. If the data is there, why not show it in its entirety? Isn't that the sloppy bit? As well as the press not being fully open about the roles that arsonists and forestry management policies play in the current situation, especially in roads. And what other data aren't we being openly shown? Because basing the planet's entire economic and social responses based on, dare I say it, selected data, will prove ruinously expensive and calamitous to all, except for the most wealthy and powerful. Surely we need to be including this type of data so that proper analysis can be carried out and the causes established, and avoid a possible outbreak of mass hysteria in the process. Or we could use the 1930s as the baseline for these charts, instead of the 1960s. So here's that graph again so you can look at the peaks and troughs and how near or far away from the US 125-year heatwave index average they are. Now compare that to the annual CO2 emissions for China, the US and India, and where the UK features in all of this. But there are some signs of sanity starting to show here in Blighty. But how long they can last is another question. The chief executive of British Gas, John Butterworth, says that heat pumps are only for the privileged, because they will be the only ones who will be able to afford them. Not only that, he questioned how a London flat could possibly be fitted with one. And one Labour peer, Lord Willie Hawley, says the Scottish winters are too cold for heat pumps to be effective. And he should know, he owns a heat pump company. More on that in a minute. Not only that, the temperature of water they produce is 54 degrees centigrade, well below the health and safety 60 degrees required to kill off Legionnaire's disease, he said. And we also hear that despite sticking to the no sales of new petrol and diesel cars after 2030, the PM Rishi Sunak has just signed a load of new North Sea drilling and carbon capture licences to help with this transition to renewable electric thing. And Labour leader Keir Starmer has already said that when Labour gets into power, he won't stop any new licences that the Tories issue. Almost like they've got an agreed plan between them, isn't it? Although once Starmer's in number 10, I would expect the windfall tax to go up yet again, so effectively slamming the brakes on them anyway. Now what got Lord Willie Hawley to speak out is the Scottish Government's plans, or more to the point the Scottish Green Minister Patrick Harvie's idea, to stop the sales of houses with an EPC rating below level C after 2025, 2 years' time. Meaning many homes would have to be fitted with heat pumps to become sellable. And he told the Telegraph, "I have a heat pump company, and following Patrick Harvie's announcement, I should really be jumping for joy. But the truth of the matter is that heat pumps don't work as efficiently in Scotland as they do in other countries." And he went on to say that his staff keep telling him not to criticise the business. But this is eco-nonsense being peddled by the Greens. I'd like to challenge Patrick Harvie to a debate on the science of it, he said. Now that's a debate we should all see, but I doubt the Greens will grasp the opportunity anytime soon. And today Rishi Sunak is saying that the answer to climate change is not to ban everything. He's now telling us that he wants to get there in a proportionate and pragmatic way. If you or others think that the answer to climate change is getting people to ban everything that they are doing to stop people going on holiday, I think that's absolutely the wrong approach. But the 2030 sale of new petrol and diesel cars will stay in place, won't it?